Welcome to Chiang Mai Chatter. As mentioned in a recent episode, this podcast is taking a slightly different route and angle, as well as continuing to record on-the-fly episodes. We are going to be interviewing people here in Chiang Mai, and I'm now sitting in a sort of made-up recording space in basically a hotel in the Taipei Gate area. And it seemed fitting to record this here because the person I interviewed has a connection with this place, this area, but also David, who you're going to hear from, has many years experience in Thailand and Chiang Mai, experience in restaurants and sort of eateries, also experience as a monk, a Buddhist monk in Thailand, and experience in the arts. So we've cut this episode into two, keeping in line with our short sort of episodes. What you are going to hear is part two of the interview with David Gordon. So let's hear that interview with David. Yeah, I remember you saying something about that Mick Jagger, the Mick Jagger connection before, and we'll go a bit from food, partly because I got food in front of me that's making me hungry the more we talk about it, when we talk about food. But Chiang Mai itself, what brought you to Chiang Mai, and what do you love about Chiang Mai? It might be a bit of a too vague question, but how long ago did you come?
I've been here 24 years, and I initially came because of my interest in Eastern philosophy, which took me to being a monk. And then when I left the monkhood, I met my wife, who is from a tiny little village about 6 hours away from Chiang Mai. Thailand has two cultures. The main culture is very, very conservative. The other culture is extremely liberal. But my wife comes from a tiny village where everyone is very conservative. And she was working as the chef in a Thai restaurant in Chiang Mai.
I like this story, by the way.
And I was taken by a Thai friend to this restaurant. No other Westerners were there. Very few Westerners ever went to the restaurant. And she had to bring something out of the kitchen. And I saw her, and it was love at first sight. So I went in the next day and asked her out. I think it was the only English she could speak. She just said no. So I went home, stayed awake all night, wondering why she turned me down. And I came to the conclusion it must have been too forward inviting her out for dinner. So I went in the next day, invited her out for lunch. No. I went in the next day, invited her out for shopping. No. Next day for a walk. No. Next day for a cinema. No. I went in every day for 6 months. And she said no every day for 6 months.
I mean, that's a long time, isn't it? I mean, you would think after 2 or 3 months you would have stopped. So what kept you going? Apart, obviously it's love at first sight, but you don't know, that could have lasted 2 years of no connection.
I was determined. She had the most wonderful smile, and she was just so beautiful. I was determined to do whatever it took to see her on her own. But according to the culture, that was completely impossible.
Yeah, and partly because it was so conservative as well. I mean, some areas of Thailand, again, it's not unheard of for a non-Thai man to ask out a Thai woman, you know, and it's not too bad. I mean, it's very traditional even to be the man asking out, but again, like you say, it's conservative, a small town or small village? Small village. So, and I've yet to see the rooms at this place where we're sitting right now, but when did you venture into when did the restaurant side of you become restaurant and sort of a hotel connection? When did that happen?
The hotel has been open about 12 years, not Kamala has been running about 12 years, but she never had a restaurant. She had lots of guests who wanted breakfast and food during the day. She never cooked, and so she approached Prom, because Prom was one of the founders of David's Kitchen. She was our dessert chef. She created all the desserts, and her love is as a bakery chef. But she's an excellent chef all round, and she's brought some of the recipes which we had in the restaurant.
Well, that's good, because you're kind of keeping it going, you know, keeping it alive from the restaurant that did exist. what is here now. I had a friend who stayed here recently, and he did highly rate the rooms, and I think he had some food here. Not sure if he had. I think he did. He stayed here for several days. Oh yeah. So, well, this is only a short little interview, but we did touch on last time something about Michelin restaurants, and you said I don't know what we can talk about, what we can't talk about, but is there some interesting facts about the Michelin restaurants in Chiang Mai, or even in Thailand?
They're very diverse now. There are a lot of street food restaurants that have the Michelin rating, which just means they're in the guidebook. There's no restaurant yet in Chiang Mai that has a Michelin star, and that's probably because the first restaurant they'll give a star will have to be Thai, because Thailand brought Michelin over to Thailand, and so it would look very, very bad for Michelin if they gave a French restaurant or a Western restaurant a Michelin star before they gave a Thai restaurant. And so we're just waiting for a Thai restaurant to get up to the standard so they can get a Michelin star. We got a Michelin plate for my restaurant, which is just below a Michelin star. But there are lots of Bib Gourmand, which is the Michelin award they give for budget restaurants. Bib Gourmand, so there are a lot of restaurants with Michelin signs outside them, but they're Bib Gourmand, which means they're easy on your pocket. They're not expensive.
So before you came to Thailand, or perhaps while you're in Thailand, I don't know, but you seem a man of many talents. So as well as running restaurants and having projects that and being a monk, let's not forget that. What other stuff have you done in your life, and whether was that in Thailand or whether it was before you came to Thailand when you were in England? I don't know.
I started off my first job in England. I worked in the theatre. I was an assistant director on a major production. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time. I don't know how I got it, but I was assistant director on a production at the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield, which used to be a wonderful theatre before it became a snooker hall. It had a main theatre and a studio theatre, and it was one of the very few theatres in England that had a studio theatre. And I always asked the artistic director if I could work in the studio theatre, because I find the work in the studio theatre, when you're playing to four sides, very, very interesting. And this is a useless piece of information, I'm the youngest director in the history of British theatre to have directed in the West End.
How old were you then?
I was 21.
Has that been surpassed, that record, since? Do you happen to know?
It hasn't been surpassed, but I'm very pleased that when I Google the youngest director in the history of British theatre in the West End, my name doesn't come up. Someone else's name comes up, and he's 5 months older than me.
So someone hasn't done their fact-checking then?
Which I'm thrilled about, because the production which I did in the West End was such a load of rubbish, which I'm so ashamed of. It's the only piece of theatre work I ever did, which I'm completely ashamed of. So I'm very, very happy that everyone has kind of forgotten about it. And if anyone, I will never let the name of this production ever cross my lips. It was absolute disaster, and it was produced by a big West End production company, who booked the theatre initially for 6 months with an option to stay open for a further 6 months. So they thought it was going to run and run. And as a director, you make your money from long-running shows, because as a director you get 3% of the gross every single month. So you'd have directed a show and moved on to another show, and maybe 3 years later, productions like Cats and Phantom of the Opera, every 3 months they're getting their initial fee. So all the directors who direct in the West End, they're all multimillionaires now, because they're making a fortune. But my production, they booked the theatre for 6 months with an option to renew that after another year. And after 2 weeks, my show was taken off, which in theatrical terms is called the theatre went dark. And I had to drive through the West End most days, and I see my name in lights, and I'm just so embarrassed. so ashamed every time. They wouldn't take my name down for about 6 months.
But I mean, you had an excuse. You were young
Yeah.
for a start, so it's not all your fault, really. I mean, you're growing up, you're learning the ropes, literally. I mean, it's...
Well, I did it purely for the money and for, I thought it would make me famous. I thought I'd then be in a position to choose whatever work I wanted to do, and that didn't happen.
Well, I will say you do seem to have done very well in other fields. In Thailand, you seem to have, you haven't let anything sort of knock you back. You've gone from that to a monkhood, which was obviously a very meaningful thing. Running a restaurant that was... If I want to find out anything about that restaurant, is there anywhere online that I can, or would you... I mean, it's something you're very proud of. If people that love Chiang Mai or want to know more about Chiang Mai, if I typed in David's Kitchen, is it articles and stuff?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, if you do it on YouTube, there are videos of us on YouTube. If you Google David's Kitchen, something will come up. I think we had something like 4,500 five-star reviews.
That's quite a lot. and one more thing, because you mentioned, I'm a filmmaker and other things, and you've been in theatre, so that passion of theatre, whether it wasn't at the time, it was to get famous or whatever, have you got any involved with dramatics or amateur dramatics here in Chiang Mai at all, or Thailand, anywhere in the world even?
I've intentionally and purposely stayed away. I haven't let there is an amateur dramatic society in Chiang Mai. I haven't even let them know. It's part of my past life. It's not something I really talk about. It's past. I had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
I was very successful, but it's over. It's finished.
But is there, just on the subject of that, is there somewhere you like to go, like to relive theatre or cinema? Is there somewhere that you go to even now in Chiang Mai?
Yes.
Okay, that creative side is gone. Now it's creative in food only, yeah? Well, that's it. I think we just wanted to have a short interview, David, and he's got lots of things to do, I'm sure. And so I don't know if there's anything you want to say. No. So we'll just leave it with that, and I'll put some links in the description. Okay, thanks very much, David. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Which is part 2